Obviously, we live in very troubling times. We live in times where the rhetoric has become more and more destructive. And I actually plan on opening my heart today as a Muslim, and my guess would be that the Muslims that you see scattered in the crowd would be nodding their heads when I echo some of the sentiments that we feel as a Muslim community. I used to not get offended by the question, do you condemn terrorism? Do you condemn ISIS? Do you condemn Al-Qaeda? That question used to be a simple question, and the answer used to always be no, and it continues to be no. But somewhere along the line, I started to get offended by that question because I started to realize that the place from where that question comes sometimes is a very bigoted place. That for you to even have to ask me, a New Orleans boy, born and raised in New Orleans, I'm an immigrant from Louisiana, here in Texas. For you to ask me that question means that in many ways you may have ingested many of the stereotypes that are present in the media today that are very ugly and that continue to push a narrative that is simply untrue. And in many ways we found ourselves, even in the political discourse, in this battle between the good Muslim and the bad Muslim. And I remember meeting a faith leader, and as that faith leader introduced me to his wife, he said, "Don't worry, he's one of the good ones." And I laughed about it, but then I went home and I thought to myself, that was pretty inappropriate. He's one of the good ones, because there is this growing idea of the good Muslim versus the bad Muslim. And in many ways, Muslims are being portrayed on either side of the aisle as either political instruments in the war on terror, so we can't be racist or bigoted against Muslims because we need them in the war on terror, or they're all terrorists. So we find ourselves in this political football game where we're always the football, and we don't actually have a chance to be represented in an authentic fashion in a way that truly talks about us, beyond being informants or terrorists, beyond being effective allies in the war on terror or the enemies in the war on terror. Who is this group of people, particularly Muslim Americans, and do they have anything to do with the threat of quote-unquote Islamic terrorism or radical Islam? Are they themselves responsible in any way, or is their religion responsible for the deviated forms and perverted forms of their faith, which do not resemble their faith in any way whatsoever? So for one thing, 10% of physicians in America are Muslim. 10%. How many of you have had a Muslim doctor before? Okay, you must have gone to the other 90%. It is Dallas, but we do have Muslim doctors here too, right? 10% of doctors in this country are Muslim. 40% of Muslims in the United States have college degrees. So it's a very educated population. The average, the overall population, 29% of Americans have college degrees. The second highest earning class of women in this country are Muslim women, slightly behind Jewish women. So you have Muslim women lawyers, you have Muslim women politicians, you have Muslim women doctors as well. It's not just 10% all male doctors. We have Muslim women in every sphere of politics. Obviously, with the fallout after, or not the fallout, well, it was sort of a fallout. The Khizr Khan Gold Star family, you have over 3,000 Muslims that served in the armed forces. And in many situations, once again, you have Muslims that are your average neighbors, Muslims that like the same foods that you do. If you have a Muslim that was born in Texas and raised in Texas, they're probably Cowboys fans. I am not a Cowboys fan because I'm from New Orleans, so I'm a Saints fan, dedicated, even when we stink.